But in some cases, some people just change their diet. Guess what? All that problem goes away as well, right? And so it's not just one thing. It's what you put in your body. It's how much sleep you get. It's the where your mind's at. It's the movement. It's all of it, right? And so this is why this presentation I think is so important, because if you can really embody or take some pieces of this and apply it to what fits for you specifically in your situation, I think you're going to have better outcomes. All right, so before I move forward, I do want to say that today we have, I guess, somewhat of a guest. A member of the community for a long time. I mean, I'm not even sure how long he's been a client of mine for now. Sean is going to be presenting on the second half of this. And so, you know, I'll present the first half and then he'll present in the second half. So let's start with the recap. Last conversation was titled Exploring Self, the Interplay of Identity, Mind, and Action. And so we went over the power of mindset, just the way that role, like the role that thoughts and beliefs play on our emotions, and really how they make up our reality. And that was a big part of it. And then we talked also about how we want to consciously choose our narratives, essentially, or rewrite the ones we don't, that don't serve us. We talked about mindfulness in everyday life, talked about habit loops, and how we can get caught in negative ones and how to reshape them into positive ones. We talked a little bit about this, and we're going to talk about this again. The dual impact of thoughts on physical well-being, right? So how your thoughts affect the way you feel. And then we talked about mindfulness and visualization to manage back pain, and even beyond that, when we talked a little bit beyond how it can just help you in life. And then we talked about some of the strategies as well. Okay, so this conversation, which is titled The Pathway to Recovery, Stress Signals, and Listening to Our Bodies, is a step further down that path. So I asked AI once again to develop a lovely image for this, and that's what they came up with. So interesting what they do. So anyways, what we're going to talk about today is understanding pain. What is it? We're going to talk about diet and holistic pain management, and then we're going to talk about the mind-body connection. Okay. And so when we're thinking about pain, it is a brain-based phenomenon, right? And so I think that's pretty obvious when you state it, but it needs to be said because it does mean that how we experience pain is going to, like, there's a reason why when each person will experience pain differently, right? Because as it states here, very simply, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system process stimuli. So like if you have an injury, for example, that's obviously going to be experienced as pain, right? But as it says here as well, things like psychological stress and emotional dysregulation can also bring about pain. So the pain is real either way, whether it's from tissue damage or if it's from psychological or other stressors, right? And so, like it says here, the subjective experience, one feels pain as a result of activation of these pathways. And so those pathways are going to vary from person to person, right? So typically there's two types of pain that we focus on: acute pain. So those are the things like you touch the hot, you know, the stove, you burn your hand. Right? It's very predictable, and it's going to take you this amount of time for it to heal. And then we have chronic pain, and we've all experienced that, I think, to some degree, because if you've experienced pain for a long period of time, it turns chronic. Now that, you know, if we read this definition here, it's an issue with the brain more than the tissue. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's yes or no. These things aren't black and white like anything, right? But we do understand that when it becomes chronic, we know that like there's a habit loop or a dysfunction that's been formed around the way that you're experiencing pain. I said to somebody recently that was like experiencing a certain level of pain when they like bent forward. And I was saying to them, it's like realistically, like your body has told you at this point, like you have pain when you do that movement, right? You've probably heard before of people who have car accidents, right? And they can never get rid of the pain that's in their neck. Their neck always just gets tight, and like it's from that car accident I had 10 years ago, right? Well, there's no muscular damage. Now there could be issues with the fascia. That's a whole other conversation. Fascia connects to nerves, which connects to the brain, which connects to your emotion. And I think this is all connected. But when we kind of separate it, there is a big difference from tissue damage and what we're talking about here with pain and stresses of pain. Okay, so looking at physical and psychological stress. So physical stressors, things like poor nutrition, lack of sleep, lack of hydration, minimal movement, can all make chronic pain worse. So these factors lead to things like inflammation, they disrupt healing, and they affect the body's ability to manage pain. And you guys know all that, right? There's no secrets there. I don't sleep, not eating right, I feel like shit. I have pain, the pain gets worse, right? I think this is pretty accepted generally. But the one thing that we often overlook is the psychological stressors, right? So these things, they impact us the same way that some of these physiological stressors do, and I would say in some cases even more, right? So they manifest physically intensifying pain, right? So emotional turmoil can exacerbate physical discomfort. So this really highlights the importance of a holistic health approach that addresses both mental and emotional well-being, played alongside physical health. So I'll tell a quick story. One of my worst flare-ups was after I thought I was completely okay. So I was completely fine. I've conquered this back pain thing. There's no issues. And and keep in mind, like I have disc issues. Um, this was not like one of those things where I was like, stressing over things. But when I had the flare up, I was in a super high intensity situation, like high stress. I was still training, doing everything, but I was not sleeping as much. I was working super long days. I was working at this Olympic qualifying event, and it was like, 12 days, 13 days of just intensity. And yeah, I had a huge flare up. I was just like, I didn't know what was going on. And like, obviously, I'm looking back at that and understanding that it was from the stress, like 100%. And so I always say, like, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And so when you've developed this habit pattern with a certain area of your body, whether it's from an actual issue that happened, right? Your body's already told you through that chronic pain cycle that you experience pain there, right? And so when you have this issue of stress, whether it be from a physical stress or psychological stress, a lot of times that same area gets attacked, right? So some of the things, I'll go over these really quick. Quality sleep is pivotal. It's first on the list because quality sleep is so important now. And some people get sleep, they don't get quality sleep, right? Sean said, hey, I've been reading before bed. Same thing for me. I read before bed, I get great sleeps because I just pass out right away. I'm on my phone before bed, not good. Watch TV before bed, not good. Like you're doing all these other things, you just don't get quality sleep. You might sleep for a long time, but the quality's not there. And obviously sleep is just a huge thing in just regenerating us, right? You can see everything there, reducing inflammation, all that stuff, okay? Food, we talked to Andre said he's going to the carnivore diet. Andre deals with something that he can't figure out, right? We haven't been able to figure out. Andre's still part of the community, but we don't work with him because at some point I said I can't help you anymore. But he's now going down that route of saying food or like what can I do? So he's searching that up down that route because he may think, hey, I have some inflammation issues. Maybe this can help. We talk about that holistic approach, right? So that would be an extreme case where it's like, hey, maybe there's something I can do with food. Just generally taking care of food. So focusing on anti-inflammatory foods, things that are going to be not in a box, that don't have any hidden ingredients. I think if you stick to things that aren't in boxes, probably pretty good for the most part. And then movement, as we all know, I don't think I have to say anything with this one. That's pretty obvious what inactivity does. And then hydration is in there as well, right? So that could probably go along with nutrition and food. But all those things are physical stressors that we all know. If I'm dehydrated, I haven't slept, and I'm eating like shit, and I'm not moving, like I probably have pain in my body. I think we can all agree to that. Even if I'm a pretty chill person, probably have some pain, right? Because I'm not moving, my body's getting tight, I'm not hydrated, right? But there is another part of this, and that is the mind-body connection. So, Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can take over the rest of the presentation.
All right. Thanks, Darcy. So yeah, guys, I think I've met most of you on some of these calls before, and working with Darcy, some recent things that I've discovered, just really wanted to share with the group in hopes that some of this could be beneficial and maybe be a light bulb moment for some of you like it was for me. So a little bit about my chronic pain story. I've been having low back pain since about July of 2022 is when I remember it kicking on. I was helping a friend move a heavy couch down a set of stairs, and ever since then, it's just kind of I've been feeling daily pain. So there might have been an injury there, but who knows? We don't. There wasn't like a Darcy moment where I knew I slipped a disc or something like that. Yeah, I started doing a lot of YouTube exercises, like we all do, looking things up online. The internet's a blessing and a curse, but yeah, I rested it. I avoided movement for a while. Eventually, I ended up going to a spine physician, and they did an X-ray. And in general, they said there were no disc abnormalities, which I was thankful for. They did say I had some mild degenerated disc between L4 and 5, and that kind of freaks me out because I think whenever you see something like the word degeneration, and it sounds so permanent, and I think that's when it mentally my pain started to become chronic. Actually, after I went to the doctor. Um, but anyways, I started working with Darcy in August of 2023, and I was starting to see some progress for sure. I think going into it, I was convinced like I just need to get stronger, need to have better posture. This is a physical issue. And after 3 or 4 months into it, I was getting stronger. I was learning all the principles of good quality movement, but I was still having chronic pain flare ups in my back. And I remember one time Darcy and I were on a call, and my mental state was a little bit down. And Darcy, I remember you asked me, you said, "What are you doing for your mental health?" And I said, "Well, I try to meditate every day and try to reduce my stress as much as I can, but I really didn't have a plan for it." So after that call, I decided that I need to start going to therapy. I thought I might benefit from a therapist as well as working with you, Darcy. I think I was kind of using you as a therapist for a minute, and I needed to kind of like talk with a professional just about anything that was going on in my life. The chronic pain was the main thing that I wanted to talk about. So, anyways, I've been working with a therapist for roughly 6 months now, and or maybe 4 to 6 months. And I feel like just in March, I kind of started having some aha moments, if you will. So, just noticing that by really paying attention to my thoughts, my mental outlook. I've downloaded the Curable app. I don't know if anybody's heard of that, but it's really all about how the brain and your body and that pain cycle really works. And I've had some improvement. So I'll kind of go over some things that have helped me towards the end here. So you can go to the next slide, Darcy. So an analogy that really helped me understand the pain process was thinking about how the brain produces pain. It's kind of like a paper route. So you think about it in the sense that the brain is the publisher of a newspaper. It's producing all this information that it wants your body to know. For me, my work has a lot of deadlines, a lot of project deadlines, and I'm definitely a perfectionist in nature, and I think that's a big contributor to my personal chronic pain. So for me, if I have big deadlines coming up, I'll notice that my nervous system's on high alert, and it's typically when my back will start hurting as well. Another thing for me, if I am in a disagreement or in a fight with my fiance, I always have a higher sensitivity to pain. So those are just some examples there of um, my brain kind of like giving this information to my body that puts me on high alert. So then there are these things called ligands, which they're kind of like the paper boys. So they deliver the newspaper, all the information from cell to cell, and then on each cell there's these things called receptors. They're kind of like mailboxes. So they're just waiting to get information and give it to your cells. And ultimately, your cells decide what to do with the information. So what this really taught me was that information from the brain can actually directly lead to pain. A lot of times I always thought the pain was more like an acute pain, like there's an injury and you have pain. I hurt my knee, the pain comes from my knee, but a lot of times actually the pain can originate in your mind, and in your brain. So um, yeah, for me, just low level stress can get can create out of context pain responses. So that's something that um, trying to learn how to cope with that. Next slide. So this picture here, I just laughed when I saw this. I typed in like somebody in pain. I like to say this: when I'm in pain. This is kind of like my how I feel. You know, you just feel like crap. You're um, looking terrible, all that kind of stuff. So how one of the questions I kept asking myself was like, so how does our nervous system become so out of whack? What causes this? And something that I actually learned in therapy is the effects of suppressed and repressed emotions. So it sounds kind of woo woo. It might sound kind of soft, but there's actually, for me at least, there's some actual truth to this. So what I mean by suppressed emotion is, if you've ever been dealing with something and you just tell yourself, "Oh, I'll deal with that later." Maybe there's an issue at work, or maybe you're in a fight with a friend and you just kind of like put it off and don't really deal with it. It's a voluntary action. You're kind of like suppressing your emotions, not really feeling things, maybe escaping to Netflix, or you know alcohol or weed were some of my common outlets in the past, that led to a lot of suppressed emotions. And then when you suppress emotions enough, then you can actually get into repressing emotions, which is a subconscious phenomena where you don't even think about not dealing with your emotions. You just your body's default mode. So as men, some of the common emotions that we might suppress or repress are fear, anger, and guilt. Those are three that I definitely deal with. I definitely have fears of re-injury. Um, Seems like a lot of my fears are financial based. Anything work related. Sometimes I ask myself, why am I such a perfectionist about work and designing roads? Like, who cares? Like, nobody cares. But for me, when I trace it back to the source, it's always about it's a financial worry. It's a, what if I don't have this job? How am I going to provide for myself, my family? Those kind of negative thoughts there. It's fear driven. A lot of times too, you might be fearful of being intimate or vulnerable with friends, family, things of that nature. Anger, that's another one. I think as men in today's society, we tend to suppress anger a lot more now, just with out of fear of being labeled, too masculine, or being perceived as just a scary person. That our culture has kind of shifted in a way that doesn't allow a lot of men to feel anger. So that's something that I realized. I don't get angry that often, even though I feel angry. And sometimes when you just trap all that anger inside, it can come out with pain and any part of your body, really. And then the other one, guilt. Guilt. Anytime, if we're withholding truth, if we're lying, if we're not being true to ourselves, I think something I'm really trying to work on is authenticity. Just being an authentic person, not worrying about pleasing everybody else so much. Just being true to my values, doing what I want to do, but also knowing that what I want to do, if it aligns with my morals and values, then there's nothing wrong with that. So anyways, those are just some common ones. I don't know if any of those resonate with you guys, but some common emotions I've been working through. So yeah, all this just to highlight that psychology plays a role in pain generation. So next slide, Darcy. Um, these are some things that can cause physical pain. I actually found this from he's like a physical therapist slash, pain therapist. Found this on Instagram, so I can't take credit for this, but it really struck to me as being true. So things that can cause physical pain, if we get sick, we lose a loved one, financial struggles like I was talking about, anytime we have issues at work, general anxiety about the future. I don't have kids, but sometimes I think about it and I'm like, how in the hell am I going to be able to raise a kid when my back flares up when I'm just worried about work? So parenting challenges is the big one. Political worry kind of ties into the world stability concerns, being overly involved or concerned about things that are somewhat outside of our control can cause pain. And in general, any type of change. For me, I'm a big routine guy. If I can't, Darcy knows, like, if I start a workout, like, I have to finish it. I'm just like wired that way. And if something comes up and I can't finish the workout, I'll feel a type of stress, and it'll lead to some pain. So that's something I've realized, like, change is something I have to become more comfortable with and tackle in order to tackle some of this pain. And ignoring emotions, kind of like we talked about on the last slide. So then this I thought was interesting. These are some things that can cause pain to persist. So once we've already got physical pain, or once we've already got some sort of pain, it can threaten our identity. So Christopher, like, I know you love to play basketball. I can imagine when your back started hurting you, you might have felt like, dang, I can't play ball anymore. Like, I'm a basketball player. There's this threat to your identity. And for me, mine was, I love to do calisthenics based workouts, and I like to be fit. I like to, um, really, fitness was something really important to me. When my back started hurting, I had to take a break from that, and fitness was taken away from me. I didn't really know who I was. So that threat to your identity can just cause your pain to compound. And along with that, sometimes you lose your community, your relationships. You might not feel like you can go out to dinner with friends because you're so worried about what kind of chairs are going to be at the restaurant. I mean, that's something I struggled with last summer, and just the way that can make you feel really causes your pain symptoms to go on. Um, Longevity worries, career impacts, just worrying, hey, what am I going to be like when I'm older? What's my spine going to look like? What am I going to be able to do? These types of ruminations and worries, they get the brain going in that pain cycle, and they definitely cause the pain to persist. Um, Things doctors said, that's a huge one. uh, Disc degeneration, ruptured discs, all these things. I mean, the Curable app has some really good information about these types of phenomena and the nomenclature for them, and how the negative connotations for these can have severe impact to healing, because the patients were so afraid of the words. And degeneration, and even displaced discs and things like that, it's actually a relatively normal thing. I mean, you think about, like, getting gray hair or wrinkles on your skin. Maybe we don't want those, but we don't worry about them. Like, are we going to be able to live? But I feel like when we get these degenerated disc or ruptured disc, those types of things, we really worry a lot, and it's actually a part of an aging body. So let's see. Yeah, just in general, catastrophic thoughts. I think all these kind of come into play. Are we catastrophizing the situation? That can definitely cause our pain to persist. So the good news. So what I've been learning, and what really excites me, is just learning that, our nervous system is plastic. It can change. We can change these thought behaviors. Um, even as adults, you know, sometimes you hear like, oh, if you're a kid, you can learn a language so much easier. I think sometimes we write ourselves off as adults being thinking that we are the way we are and we can't change. But we actually we can change our nervous system. And here are some things that I wanted to share with you guys that have been helping me to have a better handle on my pain when I know it's coming from more of a mental state, more of a stressed out, overactive nervous system. So I already talked to you guys about speaking to a therapist, but I'm serious. Like I can't recommend that enough. If you find that your pain is getting to you mentally and taking you out of things you like, affecting relationships, talking to a therapist. I mean, with BetterHelp now, it's you can just do it all online, and it really helps to talk to somebody else that's not your significant other, not even not Darcy. Sometimes, honestly, because you gotta kind of like spread the wealth almost for your healing journey. Um, Meditation, it might sound cliche, but just making some time to sit in silence. If you want to do unguided meditation, focus on your breath, just deep, long breaths, and recognizing what are you thinking about. Are those thoughts negative? Are you know, does your pain kind of coincide with stressful events in your life? And then just carving out time for yourself every day just to not focus on it and just really train yourself into that relaxation. Journaling, that's something I've been trying to do. I haven't been very good at it, but I have noticed that the act of writing out whatever I'm worried about, there's something therapeutic about it. You know, it's getting things out, and it's also really easy to look back on. Hey, I was having pain this day. This is what was going on. You can start to identify some patterns so that if it comes back, you can recognize, hey, this is, you know, I got a work deadline. My back's probably going to hurt. When it starts hurting, I'm not going to freak out about it. It'll be better in a couple days. Just helps. Um, Regular talks with friends. Hey, that's cheaper than therapy. If you got a good friend that you're comfortable just telling them, hey, I need 10 minutes just to like talk to you about some things that I'm going through. And then when I'm done, you can tell them, talk to me for 10 minutes about things you're going through. It's super helpful. Creating a sanctuary. So what I mean by that is like I like to actually the room that I'm in now, like I would call this like my sanctuary here. It's our guest bedroom in our house, but it's where I keep my computer, a yoga mat, some like low to the ground lighting, just a place where you can get away. Maybe if you um, have a significant other or kids, like a place where you can relax if you get the opportunity, and can really decompress. Sometimes after work, I'll just come up here, tell my fiance like I need 15 minutes just to calm my nervous system down after a long day of work where it's been stressed for so long. Makes a big difference. A lot of those little fights or arguments don't happen because I've calmed down a little bit, and then I don't feel bad about it, and then the whole pain cycle can be avoided. Caffeine for me, if I'm in a lot of pain, I try to cut out the caffeine or minimize it because ultimately caffeine is a stimulant. If your nervous system's already on overdrive, you know, caffeine is only going to increase that. So that's something I might take a day or two off if I'm in the pain cycle and eventually come back to it when I'm feeling better. But just something to be aware of. And let's see, kind of like Matthias was talking about dance, practicing levity and just lightness and just trying to be more relaxed in day to day. I'm an engineer by trade, and when you think about engineers, you probably think like uptight nerd, pocket protectors, glasses. And I've realized like I can be that a lot of times. I can be really rigid and tense and tight. So um, well, I'm just trying to be goofier, honestly. I'm just trying to like when I'm at home, I'm dancing around the house, I'm singing. I'm a terrible singer, but just engaging in those types of activities like dancing or singing or just moving your body in different ways, and has helped me just kind of trick my brain into relaxing in some tense situations. And similar to that is having a good sense of humor, trying to laugh as much as possible, watching more comedies, less true crime documentaries. Just simple things like that can really help, because when you're laughing and your body's relaxed, it's a lot harder to be worried about your pain. And then obsessive thoughts, that's something I've been working through a lot with my therapist, just recognizing some catastrophic thoughts that I always come back to: fear of failure, worried that I'm not going to have enough money, or worried that I'm going to have an injury or something bad's going to happen. Just realizing that that's a default mindset that I've somehow gotten in over the years. It's been effective to become, quote unquote successful, but it's no longer serving me. And I believe that it's my body now telling me that through pain, since I don't have a severe structural abnormality, but I still experience chronic pain. It's got to be something on the mental. And then the last one here is called script work for fear reduction. So this was something I learned about on the Curable app, and it basically is facing your fear head on. So I think for a lot of us, it's our back pain is one of our greatest fears. So just instead of suppressing the fear, or avoiding it, really facing it head on. And one of the ways that they recommend to do this is to just kind of say out loud to yourself, or think to yourself, think of what your greatest fear is, and then kind of reassure yourself that that your greatest fear could happen, and then kind of spin it in a positive light and say, like, if that does happen, then what? And you kind of can unravel some of these things. So for instance, like an example for me, like I'm going on a flight for my bachelor party in a few weeks, and I'm worried about sitting in the airplane on those tiny uncomfortable seats. So it would go something like, when I'm on the airplane for 2 hours, my back pain might flare up. And if it does flare up, then I will work on my breathing techniques, and I will do a workout right when I land, and everything will be okay. Like, it's going to be okay. I've gotten through everything that I've ever gotten before, but it's just kind of like a mental exercise that could be beneficial. All right. So last slide here, I just kind of wanted to say one of my favorite quotes from Sam Harris. He's pretty good in the meditation space. I would say he has the mind, or what's it called, the Waking Up app, that I'd recommend if you're looking for a good meditation app. So he says, almost all our suffering is the product of our thoughts. We spend nearly every moment of our lives lost in thought and hostage to the character of those thoughts. You can break this spell, but it takes training, just like it takes training to defend yourself against a physical assault. So the quote speaks for itself, but what I really like about it is I always thought all my pain was from a physical thing, and I'm finally realizing that a lot of it's from a mental component, and I've got a lot of training to do on that end to overcome this. So thanks for listening to my story. I hope some of this resonated with you, and yeah, open up the floor back to Darcy and the whole group.
Appreciate you sharing that, Sean. I asked Sean to come on and share this. We talk quite a bit on calls, and we've kind of been, I guess, learning about some of this stuff at the same time, but he's experiencing it, right? So, I just said, hey, would you be willing to share your experience with the group? And the reason why I think it's so important is because whether you're someone who fits like Sean's personality type, and you're like, yeah, maybe a lot of this is because of this chronic pain loop that I'm in, or you're just a guy who's like, no, I definitely have a physical thing. It doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, there's going to be a comprehensive approach to that, right? And so Sean knows very well, like he said, he was moving the couch. And on our last talk, we talked about the TMS, which is exactly essentially what Sean's talking about, right? It's this thing where, your mind can make your body be in a suboptimal position, and then you can get muscle strains and back. You can get all the physical things happen. Those things go away, right? And so sometimes it's in this theory, it's actually the mind that's putting your body in a bad position because of the stress, and then you get the physical injury, and then the loop just goes. And so the physical injury goes away, and then you're stuck in this position. But for all of us who are sitting here and have suffered chronic pain, we understand that like there's also a mental toll. So whether it's let's say you're like, you know what, that's all crap. It's purely physical for me. There's no way that this is the case. I don't really care. We all know that it's affecting you mentally. And so when you're thinking about yourself as just a human generally, all the things that Sean talked about apply to someone who isn't dealing with, right? All those things that he mentioned, meditation, the therapy, all those things are just going to help you in life, right? And so I wanted him to share this, and this has kind of been something we've been presenting because you guys all understand that the movement side of things is important, right? You know that there is something that can be done there. And I think a lot of you have experienced just by starting to work with me, you're like, hey, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. And that's good, right? But if you're not able to break through or get out of a specific situation, you should be pulling in every asset possible, and you'd be tricking yourself if you didn't accept the fact that your mind is by far the biggest influencer on anything. Right? It's the reason why the placebo effect works. Right? You take a pill, it's not even the right pill, and you're like, "Well, I'm fixed." Right? That is a perfect indication of how this all works. Right? And so, yeah, I'm gonna shut up and stop talking, but I just had to say that just because I know that some people are really in the place where Sean is, and other people are not at all. Or you might even just be in denial of this. You're like, I don't know, it seems silly, but it doesn't really matter because you can be someone who doesn't even have back pain, and all of that still applies to you, right? It all applies to the pain, everything. I know people who have had issues with, and you may know people in your family. Their hands are swelling up. They've gone to every specialist, seen people, can't figure out why. I know this that same person I'm thinking of, they actually fixed their mental thing and their swelling went away. Their hand stopped hurting, right? Because it wasn't that. They were getting injections in their hand, crazy stuff, right? But in some cases, some people just change their diet. Guess what? All that problem goes away as well, right? And so it's not just one thing. It's what you put in your body. It's how much sleep you get. It's the where your mind's at. It's the movement. It's all of it, right? And so this is why this presentation I think is so important, because if you can really embody or take some pieces of this and apply it to what fits for you specifically in your situation, I think you're going to have better outcomes, right? And so myself, I meditate all the time. I'm very grounded. I make sure I walk, and I'm always managing my stress at all times, because I know if it gets away from me, like I'll have that flare up that I had years ago now. It's probably like going on 3 years, but that was scary because I thought I was over it. I was fine. And I never want that to happen again. And I think as we get older in our age, we need to prioritize this stuff. So, um, anyone have anything that you want to share on the topic, or even a question that you want to ask on the topic?